Good day, students. I'm Professor Wikipedia, and I want to tell you about American culture today. We are going to have a lecture on an overview of the culture of the United States of America. By way of introduction, I'm going to tell you about America's global cultural roots, America's social characteristics, their diversity, culture, and mass media. The culture of the United States is primarily Western culture, that is, European, in origin and form. But it is strongly influenced by a multicultural ethos that includes Native American, African, Asian, Polynesian, and Latin people and their cultures. Moreover, American culture has its own social and cultural characteristics, such as dialect, music, arts, social habits, rule of law, cuisine, and folklore, and so on. The U.S. is an ethnically and racially diverse country as a result of large-scale migration from many different countries throughout its history. Many American cultural elements, from music and movies, consumerism to popular culture, have spread across the globe thanks to modern mass media, which is an industry created in America. The origins of American culture can be divided into four parts: English ethnic groups, the American character, British hand-me-downs, and non-British colonies. The European roots of the United States can be found in the English settlers of colonial America during British rule. A variety of English ethnic groups, like Irish and Scottish, contributed to the major cultural and social mindset and attitudes that eventually evolved into the American character. The British colonies brought with them the English language, legal system, and many other aspects of culture which became the dominant cultural heritage of the earlier settlers. The culture of that time was also shaped by a variety of imported religious beliefs, such as Puritanism and Protestantism. Various parts of what are now known as the United States were also colonized by France, Spain, the Netherlands, Sweden, Denmark, Russia, and even Japan. Though eventually overtaken by British or American territorial expansion, the longer these non-British colonies lasted, the more these societies contributed to modern-day American culture, including place names, architecture, religion, language, and food, just to name a few. American cultural development includes Native Americans, historical immigration, former Spanish territories, and African Americans. Although a multitude of Native American tribes and nations were decimated by repeated American territorial expansion, they left many cultural influences, such as New World idioms, crops, arts, and entertainment, as well as state, city, mascot, and even product names. Native culture and tradition remain strong in a few areas with large undisturbed or relocated Native American populations on what are called Indian reservations under federal law. As I mentioned before, major cultural influences have been brought to the U.S. by repeated historical immigration from Germany in much of the country, Ireland and Italy in the Northeast, China in the West, and Japan in Hawaii. Latin American culture is especially pronounced in former Spanish territories in the Southwest. It has also been introduced by later immigration, as has Asian culture, especially on the West Coast. Forced migration of Africans during the Atlantic slave trade, followed by liberation won in the American Civil War, created African American culture, which pervades the South and large cities throughout America. Blending of Southern and traditional African culture to some degree resulted in this uniquely American culture. It has its own dialect, has contributed significant innovation in music, dance, and fashion, and has often led the struggle for political and economic equality for African Americans and poor people. This unique blend is associated with significant populations of African American Christians as well as African American Muslims. Gospel and rap music and African American urban street culture have become popular globally and has melded with local performance cultures worldwide. Regional variations. This includes the melting pot versus salad bowl idea, Jeffersonian democracy, national dialect, and cross-cultural diffusion. The United States used to be thought of as a melting pot, with immigrants contributing to but eventually assimilating with mainstream American culture. However, beginning in the 1960s and continuing on to present day, the country tends towards cultural diversity, pluralism, and the image of a salad bowl instead of a melting pot. Jeffersonian democracy was a foundational American cultural innovation and is still a core part of the country's identity. Despite consistent long-standing ideological principles like individualism, egalitarianism, freedom, and democracy, American culture has a large variety of articulations due to its geographical scale and demographic diversity. American culture includes both conservative and liberal elements, different degrees of political involvement, scientific and religious competitiveness, risk-taking and free expression, as well as materialistic and moral elements. The west coast of the continental United States, which consists of California, Oregon, and Washington state, is also sometimes referred to as the left coast, indicating its left-leaning political orientation and a tendency towards social liberalism. The southern United States are informally called the Bible Belt due to socially conservative evangelical Protestantism, which frequently leans towards the gospel of wealth. The culture of large urban centers tend to be more progressive and inclusive in general than rural areas and small towns. The national dialect is known as American English, which itself consists of numerous regional dialects, but has some shared unifying features that distinguish it from other national varieties of English, such as Australian. There are 4 large dialect regions in the U.S., the North, the Midland, the South, and the West. A general American dialect is a vaguely defined Midwest dialect. Each major region has shared and local idioms, while slang expressions tend to be created and popularized by various subcultures. Mass media, especially the internet and social media, both invented and developed in America, promote cross-cultural diffusion. The World Wide Web has helped disseminate and blend cultures. Some subcultures, such as Latin, African American, and LGBT culture, have national media exposure in America with dedicated television channels. Communities have local broadcast or print publications that carry content from a specific culture, such as Native American radio stations or Chinese language newspapers. In my personal opinion, America's culture of technological futurism has made this a smaller world, with great content capacity to preserve, spread, and integrate each unique individual culture. This has fostered a synthesis of many cultures while also facilitating cultures of alienation, division, and exploitation. Thanks for attending my lecture. See you in the next class, students.